Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr. This is episode 267 of CryptoBiography, and it is part 4 of The Smallest Magician. And here we go. That day, the plan was that she would not leave the house at all, and she did exactly that. Emby wondered if the house might be besieged by townsfolk demanding that she be brought out to pay for the other kobolds' actions, but nothing of the sort happened yet. Lavera and Timmy came by to check on her again, first thing in the morning, before setting up Lavera's merchant stand. Lavera put down a basket of fruits. "For all of you," she explained. "Any trouble yesterday after we last saw you?" "None," Emby said, and Canna nodded agreement. "What have you been doing to watch for trouble?" Lavera asked. Emby and Canna just looked at each other. "That's what I feared," Lavera said. "Timmy," she said, turning to him, "every time you come this way, I want you to circle this house, make sure no one is spying on them. And if it gets quiet at the stall, or too much time happens, come here and do it anyway. Just throw me a wave, and I'll know what you're about to do and cover for you. Got it?" "Got it," Timmy replied. His chest was puffing out a little. Apparently, Emby thought, Timmy wanted this bit of responsibility. Not long after, Canna and Emby went to see Master Donegal. He was, as usual, in his chambers, specifically at his desk. This was midday, and enough light came through the window that he was not lighting candles. Books were on every shelf, and several more were on the desk. He still had his own self-written tome on magic. Emby gave it a longing glance before looking at Master Donegal. As was his wont, he was reading and writing at the same time, while paying the minimum attention to anyone else in the room. Since they were expected, he motioned for them to have a seat in the chairs, more or less opposite the desk. They waited while he finished with some thought. He was writing on loose paper. Whether he was taking notes, writing a letter, or doing something else, she wasn't sure. Finally, he finished his thought. He put down his quill, marked and closed his book, and took a moment to look at Emby and Canna. "You've been thinking," he said to Emby. It wasn't a question. "Yes, master," she replied. "Have you come to any conclusions?" "I have." "Please," he said, making a small gesture for her to continue. "I have no place among the kobolds," she started. "I don't remember them, and I don't know their language." "But I don't have a place among the humans. Not yet," she said. Master Donegal made a slight wince, she noticed, but it passed almost immediately. "So what are you thinking?" "I want to learn magic." Master Donegal looked at her levelly. "What do you know of magic?" "Only a little, for now." Without thinking, she rushed ahead. "I made a copy of part of your book, and though I can't say I understand it yet, I've been trying to learn. But if you taught me, I would be a willing student." His eyes went over to the book. "Canna, would you leave us alone for the rest of this conversation?" His tone was polite, but it brooked no debate. Canna got up, nodded, and exited the room. "How did you decide that magic might be your way forward?" he asked. "And when did you have time to make a copy of my book?" "Only a part of it, and quite recently," Emby replied, answering the second question first. "As to my decision, well, with no place among the kobolds or among the humans, what's left? A place with you. I've been interested in seeing you do magic, which I've done on many occasions, before finally copying your book." "You've watched me do magic?" he replied, clearly surprised, but apparently without anger. "When and how?" "This house," Emby said, "is riddled with hidden passages, which I'm sure were made for the merchant who built it, to allow him and his family to quickly escape if there was ever any trouble. That air grate up there," she pointed up to it, "though quite high up, has a little homemade perch of mine, and I've watched you through it many a time." Donegal seemed more amused than upset at this news. "Show me." Emby went to the hidden door, unlatched it, and swung it open. Donegal crossed the room and looked in, but did not yet enter. "Where do these lead?" "The bedrooms, plus 3 other exits, which I think are designed to give a variety of possible ways to escape. Or, of course, hide, assuming the house isn't afire." "Well, I don't think I need to know the details of these passages tonight, but let me see this perch you made." He then took a candle and stepped into the dusty corridor. He looked both directions, and then up to see the perch Emby had made to look through the grate. He looked down at Emby. "This took some doing." Emby couldn't meet his gaze. "Yes." But he put a hand on her shoulder in a comforting way. "Then we should talk." They went back to his office. She closed the door and made it as though there was no passage there. Master Donegal looked briefly at it, and Emby knew that he had remembered every detail of what he had seen. She had no doubt that he had seen how she had unlatched it and could do it himself within moments, if need be. "So, your wanting magic isn't just a reaction to yesterday's news. This has been coming on a while." He gestured for her to sit down. He settled behind his desk. "Yes, master," he sighed. "There are a couple of difficulties I foresee." Emby steeled herself. "What are they?" "Well, one is, I'm not sure how people will react once they know you can do magic. It may be dangerous to you." Emby didn't say anything. "On the other hand," he continued, "that is the sort of risk I think shouldn't be my decision, but yours. Are you willing to take on the risk that learning magic will earn you enemies, large and small?" "Do you have enemies?" she asked. Master Donegal was always so quiet. It was hard to imagine him having enemies. "Oh, yes, yes," Emby thought, but it did not change the balance in her mind. "I will take that risk and try to minimize it for you and for this house." "Okay. The other one is about your being a kobold." Emby just looked back. "It's not that you are one, particularly. It's your lifespan. Kobolds live 40, maybe 45 years, if they're lucky. It will limit you, at least in time. If you study magic, you'll have to learn as much as you can as fast as you can. And that leaves out the final thing. I've not heard of a kobold using magic. I don't know if it'll be possible for you. But if you want to try, we can check something." "What?" "Hold still." He came around his desk and kneeled in front of her so their heads were level. "Just look straight ahead." He looked into her eyes, unblinking, for some time. "I'll be." She blinked and looked at him. "You have it. You have the glow. I can teach you." And that's the end of the story for this week. Hope you're enjoying it. If you have any comments or questions about this episode or previous episodes, cryptobiography@gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. And thanks for listening. Words and music copyright 2022, CryptoBiography LLC, all rights reserved. Characters and events are fictional, fictionalized, or satirical.